What's up, y'all? Welcome back to DL Peck Fishing. Check it out. It is hot. It is hot right here out on my home lake, and I am searching for new structure at the moment. And don't forget about this important shortcut on your Humminbird. I run the Explorer and the Apex. Check this out. If you're looking for structure and you mark a waypoint and you want to go back to that waypoint, let's say you drifted off or you're doing something, you're tying your rods or whatever you're doing, right? And you want to go back to that structure, I'm going to show you how to do that with your trolling motor, your Ultrex or Ultrex Quest. Okay guys, before we jump into that, I want to give you a rundown of what's in this video. We're going to go over 3 tips. Number 1 is the Ultrex Quest and the navigation to a waypoint that I just mentioned. Number 2, we're going to go over Mega Live and splitting screens with 2D and why we should do that. And then we're going to talk about Mega Live 2 and how we interpret images and what's actually on the screen. Let's get into it. Okay, so I'm sitting stationary in spot lock at this location. You see where the yellow arrow is pointed. The first thing we're going to do is mark a waypoint. So you're going to long press on your Apex, Solex, or Explorer. A dialog box will appear. So now you want to mark your waypoint. Here I'm keeping the false except for the color, just for clarity for this video, so I'm using red. Keep in mind you can mark icons such as brush piles, fish, etc. on the screen. Now that your waypoint is set, tap that X button to close the dialog box out. So in step 2, we're going to click the navigation icon at the top of your screen. A navigation dialog box will appear over to your right. You want to select go to point at the top of the menu. That's your first option. And now you should be ready to go. You should be set and your boat should be moving, navigating to that waypoint. As you can see, my boat is moving. It's headed toward the waypoint marked in red. Okay guys, I know this seems like such an easy feature, but most of us often forget about this during our time on the water. As mentioned, this is helpful whenever you have multiple waypoints that you want to navigate back to without having to hit those marks with your big motor or just being at the helm of your trolling motor itself. You could be tying on baits, or you can just be simple as taking a phone call. So this just gives you the ability to do this at your console or at the front. It's very helpful. All right, guys, in this section, which is the second tip, it's really not a tip. It's more of some advice. I want to quickly break down why we use both 2D sonar and live sonar at the same time and why you should probably do the same, especially if you are a tournament fisherman. So first off, it's about coverage. 2D sonar, it gives you a constant, reliable view of what's happening directly under the boat, because your live sonar is letting you or allowing you to look out front and scan around and track fish in real time. But if you're running both, you're not stuck just watching one area in front of you. You're covering more water by looking at the returns that are directly down below your boat or your trolling motor in this case. Another reason I do it, it also helps you stay locked in on structure and fish. So let's say you're live scanning in a brush pile that's 40 feet in front of you. Well, the 2D is going to, keep you aware of what's actually going on right at your feet. So fish love to move around, and sometimes they'll slide right under your boat without you even realizing it. So if you got a drop shot or something down there already that you fishing a brush pile on, you can just hurry up and quickly get that drop shot or whatever the case may be right there directly under your boat. And you can catch those fish. And another big one is avoiding live sonar tunnel vision. I've been guilty of this myself, just staring at live all day. But, the truth is 2D, it picks up fish and structure that live sometimes misses, especially those that are tucked in right underneath the boat or, just suspended in the water column. So, basically just different tools for different jobs is what I always say. Live sonar is amazing for tracking moving fish and making, pinpoint casts, but 2D is unbeatable when it comes to spotting fish that are glued to the bottom or whenever you fish in deeper schools. So using both would just give you a complete picture. Okay, so now I'm gonna get into talking about how to read fish on Mega Live 2. I mean, there's tons of videos out there with the other brands that, talk about this topic, but with Mega Live 2, I don't see a ton of videos out there on it. So I'm gonna jump right in and help you guys out on interpreting images on Mega Live 2. So we're first gonna talk about crappie. Usually they show up in tight groups or schools, especially around brush piles and vertical structure. So on Mega Live 2, they look a lot like clusters of small dots, and they're often suspended, mid-water or stacked on top of each other. As far as bass, they are more likely to be spread out. They're often relating to structure, edges, bottom transitions, and they're just roaming in open water. They tend to show up as individual, larger returns, and sometimes sitting off the side, of the cover itself, like in this image, or chasing bait. So, in general, fish behavior, it tells you a lot. Watch for quick movements or aggressive swipes. On live, those are usually bass. And how to judge size on Mega Live 2 is simple. I mean, the brighter and the thicker the return, the bigger the fish. Bass will appear as solid, bright marks, especially compared to the smaller species like crappie or baitfish, or maybe even just smaller bass. So pay attention to the length of the fish and the return relative to the bottom structure like logs and rocks. And if the marks are long and wide, it's usually quality bass. One rule of thumb that I like that I learned from a live scope guy. Well, I won't say a live scope guy. My good friend Chris, actually, he's a crappie fisherman. He's really good at it. And he's always taught me that if your bait is the same size as the fish that are on your screen, or if your bait is smaller than the fish that are on the screen, then likely those are not the fish that you're looking for. That could be bait fish, it could be just really small bass, it could be small crappie, etc. So that's always a good rule of thumb. Just kind of compare your bait to what you're actually seeing around that brush pile. And there may be some keepers in this pile. I did catch a small bass out of this pile. I didn't spend a lot of time here. It was super hot that day. But I would suspect these are probably around 2 pounds, maybe a 3 or so in there. But these are kind of some smaller bass in this particular pile. All right, guys, so I'm gonna wrap this section up and give you one more tip: reaction on bait drops. And what I mean by that, drop your bait and watch how fish react. Crappie, for an example, they tend to follow or slowly rise to the bait, while bass will often charge nose down and strike it afterwards. These reactions can tell you just as much as the image is telling you. So for example here, let's get into this particular image. So you notice I dropped my bait down a little while ago. My bait is still in this brush pile at this moment. And 3 big bass has come to the picture right now. They're hovering over this brush pile, and my bait is still in this brush pile at this moment. But there's also a bass inside this brush pile that you cannot see. And actually, I did hook up with one of these fish, and then I lost them on the way to the boat. I threw in there again, and maybe in the second or the third cast, I actually pulled that fish out. So yeah, so I finally got connected with this fish, and I'm working him to the boat. And I just happen to have a cameraman today. So me and my buddy Danny, we out testing our Mega Live 2, getting them dialed in, and this actually happened. So
that's a big one. That's a good one.
So yeah, so what was sitting in that pile where, like I said, 5 and 6, this was more on a higher 6 end, maybe closer to 7 almost. So this was a pretty good catch. But as you can see to the right, that's what bass look like on a Mega Live that are of size. Hey guys, if you made it this far, I really appreciate you sticking around. Hopefully this information helps you out no matter what brand of technology you're using on the water. Drop me a comment and let me know if you found this helpful and if you would like for me to keep putting out more tips like this. Until next time, tight lines.